Hi, this is Marlene with Miami Ghost Chronicles, and I want to welcome you to another episode of Stories of the Supernatural. Wherever you find us, whether it's a video or podcast on your favorite platform, please like and subscribe to us so that you can get notification of when a new show is released. You can also find us on major social media platforms. If you go to miamighostchronicles.com, you can find links to the videos or MP3 files, which you can download and enjoy without commercial interruptions. If you're into classic horror, ghost, and adventure stories, I narrate Nightshade Diary, and you can find links at nightshadediary.com. If scary stories are your bag, and listening to encounters with cryptids, ghosts, dogmen, and other weird creatures sends a shiver up your spine, then go to supernaturalstorytime.com for links to our weekly podcasts. Noteworthy news about the paranormal world, true crime, conspiracy stories, and anything that is just plain weird can be found at eerie.news or visit the Stranger Than Fiction Stories tab at miamighostchronicles.com. Please subscribe to my newsletter on Substack. Just go to mppellicer.com for a link. I want to thank you for being part of my audience, and I think you are all wonderful. Hi, how's everybody doing? Good, I hope. Everything's good over here. I know people want to, since before I used to fill in on my chickens, and I'm not, well, I still have the chickens out there. As a matter of fact, I lost one of my favorite roosters, my blue Andalusian. Happens. I'm pretty good at, when any of my poultry gets sick, at bringing them back. But sometimes stuff happens that you just can't do it. So I lost my blue Andalusian rooster. C'est la vie. And there we go. And as far as the pigeons, I'm still on it. They've got an egg. It's a work in progress. How's that? But outside of that, everything is good. That's the thing when you have animals. All my other birds, I've got parakeets that had babies. Yeah, believe it or not, yeah, that's a big thing around here because I do have other exotic pets. And everybody asks me because I put up videos about the guineas. Yeah, they're running around, they're running wild and on my property, and they're very quiet. Not
Right.
so. Anyway, let's get on to the good part. The good part is who is the guest today at Stories of the Supernatural, and this gentleman, his name is. This is the first time that he's here on Stories of the Supernatural, and we're gonna get into some areas that you're going to be wow. His name is Tony Sayers, and one of the what he his area of expertise is targeted individuals, entity attachments, etheric interference. Um, through years of research, he's come across what true alchemy is, and that if we're to progress in anything in life and better ourselves, either both individually or collectively, it's important to face the negative square in the face and then transcend them into positives. In other words, not dwell on it, but uh, like true warriors face the challenge head on, no matter how hard the road looks. In other words, something like the road less traveled. Only then will we see permanent, long lasting change, and it is very achievable. It is a great time to be alive. It is, according to Tony. There is more change happening on the planet now than ever before as we move into these transcending times. He has an overarching belief for a long lasting solution that revolves around the understanding, knowledge, and living by natural law, or it can be known as cause and effect or karma. Basically, that we are at the moment kind of getting what we deserve through our collective behavior, our ignorance, our lack of care for other people, animals, and generally what is really important. Okay. He also considers that as far as what's going on with the manipulation of humanity, that it goes way beyond just the third dimensional matrix. It's the hijacking of both our physical, emotional, and energetic bodies, which can't be comprehended at our current level of consciousness. And the reason being, it's because we're measurably powerful. Entity attachments, AI technology, etheric implants are just some of what is trying to siphon from our spirit and soul. Understanding was going to be on the first step to liberating ourselves. Help me welcome him. How are you doing today, Tony?
I'm doing really well, and it's great to be on your channel. And I have big respect for you because you've been doing this since the 90s,
Yeah.
and I've only been pulling my hair out for the last 10 years. So
Now, let me tell you something. You know what? I'll be. I think a lot of people, myself included, that have been, that have been doing this. We haven't been doing the hair pulling from then. We've been doing the hair pulling since recently because a lot of things have become more. How can I tell you? Recognizable
mhm.
only in the last few years for what they are. How's that? For
Yeah,
what they are.
yeah,
And what
it's
we
kind
were
of
just talking about before we started to roll about this, we'll start off with the self-help feel, how it evolved from what it started in the 80s, 90s, the new agers, and then it's morphed into other things. And we were talking how sometimes that the presentation on it is very attractive and nice, and what's the rainbow colored,
mm.
and then it evolves into something else. But let me ask you something. Do you work with clients that find themselves at the wrong end of these types of experiences?
Oh my God, yeah. Down the years, I've got so many stories. One day I'll write a book about where people thought they were working with Archangel Michael, or they
Yes.
thought they were channeling their dead dad. I've got one particular story of a guy that he said, Tony, everything you're saying is true. These beings, they masquerade. I thought my dad passed. I was incredibly close to him. And
Hmm.
this being I thought I was channeling I thought it was my dad. This being knew what my favorite food was, knew where my favorite places were. And I followed the advice of, what I thought was my dad, ended up losing his wife, his house, just life crumbled around him. And so, yeah, we are, or what is happening in the so-called spirituality movement, or I don't know whether that comes under self-help. That's a large
Yeah, yeah.
umbrella.
It's all spirituality, self-help, self-healing. Yeah, that umbrella.
Yes, yeah. So people are tying themselves up in knots, working with what they believe to be light beings. Friendly angels, aliens, guides, even the higher self. The higher self is an entity that is masquerading. And so the problem is that when people are trying to go out there and connect with stuff, they're tying themselves in knots, and they will get a certain amount of truth. You know how this works: 70% truth, 30% the dump in the punch bowl is what I call it, or the rug pull. So
Hmm.
there was one lady that I worked with where she lost her cat. She was incredibly close to her cat, and she thought that she was channeling Archangel Michael, and Archangel Michael, quote unquote, helped her find her cat. It did help find the cat, and so that gave her more confidence that this was Archangel Michael.
Right.
And then what happened? There was the inevitable rug pull. She followed some advice, which turned out to be an absolute disaster,
Okay.
and then landed up at my doorstep. And we were speaking about it off air about John O'God is the
Yes, yes. We were talking
a
about
very,
the.
yeah, very high profile
Oh
example of
yeah.
it, because he was actually curing cancers in some cases, but then turns out he's a child trafficker. And this is what they do: they mix truth with lies to get people on board, and then there's the big dump in the punch bowl, or the rug
Hmm.
pull, and that's where the damage is done, and that can then take months, years, or a lifetime to heal. And so we have all these people spending, hundreds and thousands of dollars of, Archangel Michael healing
Let me
sessions. And
ask you, just out of curiosity, how is she channeling Archangel Michael supposedly? What was she using?
oh, it's intention.
So in other
With,
words, she just got the. Is that
yeah,
what she thought that?
she,
Okay.
she just she just wanted to connect with
Okay.
that entity that it calls itself Archangel Michael. I mean,
Okay.
the archangels, if you see them in their true form, they look like squid, right? They're nothing
Right.
like angels, right? But what these entities do is they shapeshift, they masquerade, they deceive. This is why it's a matrix. It's full of tricks, right? They're tricksters, and we see this play out in the physical dimension, where we have leaders, politicians, head of corporations. They'll whisper sweet nothings in your ear all day long and tell you they're going to do this, and they're on our side. And what happens? Everyone goes, yeah, that person's on our side. I'm going to go. run down the voting ballot like a good little slave.
Yes.
Put my note in the paper, in the ballot box, whatever, and then what happens? The guy or the woman gets voted in, and then everything that they said they were going to
Right.
get.
And people think of, it's called deception. And by the way, a lot of people have a hard time, whether, we're talking here human versus that's something that's dark or malevolent or evil has even can masquerade. Yes, they can masquerade. Hello. It's like,
Yeah,
no, if it's dark, you can tell that it's a dark whatever.
yeah,
But what, you don't think that they can pretend to be something else? And
yeah.
not too long ago, I was telling people, when I used to do more active in paranormal research, and even now I get consult whenever they would tell me, "Oh, we think we have a child ghost," or I'd be like, "Stop right there." My alarm bells would go off because
Oh
all these things, to bring down your guard. It's
yeah.
a
Hmm.
child, our first response is to think, "Oh my God, a kid," you know, it's
Yeah,
not bad. Every time I would see one of those, it'd be like, "Whoa, whoa,
yeah,
whoa."
yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, and people have a hard time comprehending. Yes, things of this nature can disguise themselves.
yeah, and it's very triggering for people. I mean, people when they first hear what I'm saying, some people hate me.
Oh, sure.
I've had people say, Tony, when I first started listening to what you had to say, I didn't like you at all. And the
Mm-hmm.
reason that they don't like it is because, well, the thing that you point out there, like they don't want to think that something so innocent as a child could be an entity
Mm-hmm.
masquerading, right? They
Yes.
don't want something to think. They don't want to believe that when their mum or dad passes, an entity is going to use that to try
Yes.
and shoehorn them into a certain path in their life, which is going to end up in disaster or something like that. People want to believe the best, and I get it.
Yes.
People want to believe that they have a team of guides around them, just
Mm-hmm.
guiding them, to all the best opportunities and I mean, we're on a slave planet. Like, if the
Yes.
guides are so great, what are we doing here? And we've not
Exactly.
only just we've not been here just one lifetime. We've been here probably hundreds, if not thousands, of times. If you look into the soul trap, which I 100% believe is a thing, where people are passing and they're going to the light because that's all they know because there's all this propaganda about it. You've got Disney films now called Soul. You've got all the Netflix series with the NDEs telling you to go to the light, and what you're met when you go through the light tunnel, you're met with one of these entities that masquerade. That this AI system will work it out. It will be like, right, okay, Marlene, yeah, she was very close. They even use pets.
Oh,
If
sure.
you if you research these NDEs, I mean, you talk about evil. This is like next level, right? So
Yes.
they'll be like, right, okay, let's work it out. How can we lure Marlene back round again in this solar system, luring the soul? It's all in the
Yes.
etymology of the word, right? And so,
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, Marlene, she was an animal person. She was very close to, her cat or whatever. So the cat shows up when she was also close to. Oh no, she was really into archangels. So we'll we'll, we'll
Yes.
we'll put archangel there as well. So that you pass, you're kind of like confused because you didn't, not you personally. I'm just using your name
No,
for
no,
the.
no. Absolutely. No, I get it.
But because most people don't do any research in their physical lives, ignorance doesn't die when we die. So people don't know better. They go straight. Oh, I'm dead. Oh, well, there's the light tunnel. So that's where I should go. And then the entity shows up. Oh, it's my great granny Edith or whatever. Oh, it's been so long. Oh, I
Yeah.
miss you. And then your cat's there, your dog's there, everyone's there with open arms. And they'll be like, oh, come with us. And Archangel Michael's, oh, it's so good to have you back. And the person's like, oh, this is great, because you're out of this human carcass, this prison of your consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Everything feels light. You don't have all the NDEs. They always say, like, you don't have that trauma, the heavy emotions that you have here down on earth. It's great. So you're free from all of that. And then what they do is they're like, right, okay, it's time for your life review, Marlene. And so you go, oh, okay, then. And then they literally put you in front of a screen. People have reported being in
Yes.
front of like an auditorium where there's these big screens. And they'll say to you, right, Marlene, we're not going to judge you. There's no judgment. They'll say that. They'll make a very,
Mm-hmm.
very strong point of telling you there's no judgment. but they'll make damn sure that they show you your worst bits so you judge yourself, right?
Yeah.
So you'll see you've got all this life, and maybe there's a couple of clips that were good, and then they'll put, in 2006 when you hurt Derek, when you broke up with him, right?
Right.
And in 2012 when you had an argument with your auntie, right? And what they do is they won't judge you, but they make you feel what the person felt when you quote unquote hurt them. I mean, we all hurt people. We don't mean to, but it's life. Sometimes you're upset, but they make you feel what the person did. So what does that do, right? Humans, by our nature, we have empathy. Then they hit you with the guilt and the shame and the karma, and if you're religious, the heaven and hell programs. Now, you started off with my introduction, which was very kind, but I think it's very important to point out. Can you hear me still?
Let me ask you, and because obviously that NDE process that you just described, which as a matter of fact, Raymond Moody, he was a doctor that you remember, I want to say it was the 80s that he wrote that book about how he would have the people that were technically dead and then they came back and they all described that tunnel of light and the being greeted by their dearly departed or whatever. This was how they knew.
Yeah.
And then they came to that point where they sometimes they were given a choice, or they said, look, I'm not ready to go, I have a child, whatever, and they were thrust back into
Well,
their bodies.
what you typically hear is the person doesn't want to come back. When you
Right,
study this,
exactly.
there's
Exactly.
always great resistance. Always,
Yes.
I reviewed one the other day on my channel where this woman thought she was dealing with God, right? And God was explaining to her that you have free will, like you have free will. We all have free will, and so um, basically, she said, "Well, God loves us. We have free will." But I didn't want to come back down. I really didn't want to come back down. And then the next thing I knew, I was, and she uses the word stuffed back down into my
Uh-huh.
physical body. So on the one hand, she's telling everyone that she's got free will. God's telling her that she's got free will. She's telling God she doesn't want to come back down here. God's saying, well,
Right.
you've got a mission or whatever. And she's like, no, God,
Right.
I don't want to go back. And then all of a sudden she's stuffed. She uses the word stuffed back down into her physical body. So where is the free will in that? But I just wanted to make a very important point regarding the life review, because you started off kindly introducing me. I think that's that introduction partly at my book or something.
Mm-hmm.
I've changed my whole idea on karma and natural law. I don't believe karma is an operation on this planet. If it was, then we wouldn't see big fat paedophiles running the world,
Oh
and they
no,
would
absolutely. Absolutely.
and we wouldn't have children in Gaza getting limbs blown off, right?
No, it would be let's put it, whether it's instant or long-term karma. No, there's
Yeah,
a lot of people that have done horrible things that die of old age in their bed.
absolutely, absolutely. And there's innocent people that go to prison for life,
Yes,
and
yes.
so I used to believe in natural law and karma, but now I completely don't. I don't believe it exists at all. So I just wanted to put that in because it's important that I mention that, because they use the idea of karma to guilt trip people to come back round. Because what they will do when they've shown you your worst bits, Marlene, and you're feeling
Mm-hmm.
all bad about yourself, about how you hurt
Right.
Derek in 2006, right? They'll hit you with the guilt and shame program. So they'll be like, look, you know, you were a good person, Marlene, but because of those things, you've got to resolve this and karma you need to resolve. And you're like,
Yes.
well, what do I need to do then? Well, you need to go back and have another lifetime. As a
Right.
Vietnamese rice farmer with like a disability, right, to learn lessons.
Right, right. Whatever you did wrong, let's put you
Yeah,
back
right.
in a lifetime, supposedly, or circumstances that
Yeah.
you'll get it, hopefully.
Or if your thing's religious, if your thing's religion and you're heavily into the idea of heaven and hell, then they'll use the threat of hell. Look, Marlene, you were good, but what you did to Derek, there's the gates to hell there. I mean, you don't have to go there, but and you're like, well, what do I need to
Yeah.
do then? Well, you need to come and have another lifetime on Earth. Well, I don't want to go back to Earth. Well, that's your option. And so the
It's like, oh, it's
human,
not much of an option now, is it?
no, exactly. So the human soul just goes with it, despite their absolute abhorrence of wanting to come back. Like if you really study these NDEs, that the way they talk about feeling about coming back, they will argue to this entity. They will like, but the entity will always find the way of manipulating the person. So quite often the entity will say, well, look, you've got young children, or you've got
Right.
the one that they like using a lot is you've got a mission down
I was
on
about to
earth.
say that one right there that you just said. You've
Yeah,
got you've got work to do.
you've got work to do, right? You've got a mission, and oftentimes when they're talking about their NDE, they still don't know what their frigging mission is. They're like, well,
Yeah.
they told me I got a mission, and I think it's to, and they become agents of the Matrix. So they're back down on
Right.
Earth, repeating the white light soul recycling trap and selling
Right.
it as a good thing. They're like double glazing salesmen that don't know they're double glazing salesmen, and they're selling the whole matrix again to people. And the interesting thing that I'm finding now is, with the rollout of the pokes in the arms, that there's more people that are going to die. They're coming down with all these cancers and all this
Oh
stuff.
yes.
And so what I've seen is a direct correlation of more and more life NDE channels on YouTube, more NDE propaganda.
Oh yeah.
It's almost like they know more and more people are going to be exiting soon, and so they're priming people. So when people receive the bad news, they're stumbling across these videos and they're like, well, you know what, I'm dying, but it's going to be all right. Granny Jones is going to be there. Archangel Michael's going to be there. If I'm religious, they'll use Jesus. Jesus is going to be there. And so then the cruelest things happen. So when they've finally convinced the soul to come back down, is the memory wipe, the veil of forgetfulness.
Mm-hmm.
And so everything you learn in this lifetime, you've forgotten. That's why they call it research, retiring. So you could have got to a very advanced point of learning about the matrix and stuff. But if you have a rigid belief system, if you can't let go of religion, or if you can't let go of the idea of angels or guides, you can
Right.
bet your life that they're going to use that against you to try and hook you back round again. So what I'm saying to people is, look, try and let go of all these matrix type kinds of attachments. And I'm not saying like don't have strong bonds with people while you're in physical form. Don't be close to your mom and dad. I'm not saying that. Be close to them. Have those relationships, but leave that at the door when you go, because the chances are they're going to use these things against you. I reviewed one NDE of a man that he was. That they'd convinced him to come back. He said, yeah, but I don't want to go through the veil of forgetfulness. It's a very traumatic process. I don't know the technicalities of what actually happens. I believe it to be like some kind of AI tunnel that you go through, and
Right.
it's very unpleasant before you get into the soul. Sorry, the body of the human or the embryo, whatever. But the guy was like, no, if I need to come back, but I just can't handle the vow of forgetfulness again. I can't handle it. And this entity was like, we can help you. They always offer the help, don't they?
Right. Of
And
course.
and so what they did is that they offered him a veil of forgetfulness training center. They have training centers in the astral, right? So this guy
Okay.
he reported going to this like memory wipe training center to prep him so it wouldn't be so traumatic when he got thrown back into a human body with his memory wiped. I mean, this is like, people want to talk about all the physical stuff, the corruption going
Mm-hmm.
on with the politicians and all that stuff. I mean, yeah, it's good to know all that stuff. It's good to know that we're manipulated, but this is where the keys are, like understanding that this evil and this matrix is coming from the astral, and the manipulation in regards to the soul recycling. I don't like using the word trap, right? I prefer trick, right? Because
Okay.
I don't think we're trapped here forever. I think it's just a simple choice. When we pass, it's like, I'm not coming back. I'm leaving this realm, and the entities and God or whatever are dealing with these people. They do say, look, it's your choice, and we do have that choice. But the problem is they're very good at convincing and manipulating and
I think
bending.
it's more because I think people are being resuscitated more than before. Before, You know, if you had some massive injury or anything, you were occasionally it could save you, but in more recent years, you go into these trauma centers and they can bring you back
Mm,
from even a long time of your heart, you know, having stopped beating. Everybody knows how to do CPR, you
yeah,
know. So where people before were dying and it's like you're dead, that's it. We
yeah,
couldn't
yeah,
save you. Now more and more people are being brought back after being technically dead because of, you know, drugs, efforts. Even, you know, something happens to you on the street, you can have somebody that will do CPR on you. And I
mm,
think that's why you also hear more of these stories of people coming back
mm,
because they actually in other words, they were able to protect the body enough
mm,
so there was something to come back to. In other words,
yeah. Well, a lot
'cause,
of
you know, if your body's mangled, it's like it's not gonna work.
yeah, and actually, you know, when a lot of these people they have these NDEs, so they leave the body, they report seeing their body on, you know, death or
Yes,
mangled or whatever, and then once the matrix convinces them to come back, they end up going back into their body where they've just had a car crash or whatever, and they're in like insufferable pain. And so yeah, it's even more traumatic because they've just come from a place where, you know, you haven't got all that physical and emotional baggage, so to speak, and yeah, they just come back down, and they're just propaganda machines for the soul track or soul trick, and so yeah, and unless you understand that the
so
new
let me
age,
ask you, do you think then, let's say in the process of, let's say you're dying, whether it's you're old or, you know, a disease, an illness, or just suddenly for whatever reason, that at some that in other words, that we shouldn't have to come back, you know, that this what do you call it, the karmic wheel, I think is what they call it, that we should say no, sorry, not interested, even
yeah,
though, you know,
yeah,
they kind of like give you the, you know, door one, door two, or door three.
yeah, yeah. So I do believe that it is just a very simple choice, and you just have to be very strong in your conviction of, see, in that realm, in that astral realm, intention
Mm-hmm.
is instant. When you have a thought in that realm, you go there. It's like, you know, and when you create something, you can put yourself there. So we can create realities as human souls.
Yes.
So what we can do in that realm is incredible. But the problem is because of the memory wipe, we forget who we are. We've had all the
Mm-hmm.
propaganda of the NDEs or religion or karma or what have you down here, and because it's such a powerful thing, they hit us out at our weak spot at our very vulnerable time when we've just passed, and Granny Edith shows up, who you're incredibly close to.
Sure, of
Of
course.
course, you're going to be like, "Oh my God, thank God you're here," and then that's when the manipulations start. And so, what I would say to people, if you get as far as seeing Granny Edith, you've probably gone too far, right? So for me, people say, well, "What are you going to do?" For me, I'm just okay. I'm dead. I've had enough now. I'm going. Thank you. No, I don't want to speak to you. I'm gone. And
Yeah.
there was an NDE that I reviewed the other day, and it was a gentleman, and it was very interesting. He reported that he could see a tunnel of souls coming back and forth, going into
Really.
the earth and back, yeah, away from that. So I would assume people being born, people dying, right? And then he said that he saw an incredible ball of colors. He said colors that you don't even have on Earth. He was like, they were so
Yeah.
vibrant and so awe-inspiring. And I took that to be maybe it was creation itself. Like it could be, right? Could be. And
Okay.
he was so drawn to that, to whatever that was. And then he said he was gravitating towards that. And then he said, I felt an energy come in between me and where I wanted to go. And this energy telepathically told him, you know, if you go there, you can't come back. And he was like, well, I don't know if I want to come back. And he said, but you've got a mission. You've
Oh.
got a you've got a purpose on earth that you need to fulfill, right? And he
Yes.
was arguing and arguing with this energy. He didn't want to come back, didn't want to come back. And I think, I don't know if they hit him with the karma or the, you know, guilt and shame and all this stuff. And eventually, they shoehorned him back round.
Right.
And I took that to mean that he was going back to some kind of like essence or source, or he was
Right.
he was he
Source.
was he was, he was on his way, I think. And the Matrix stepped in and convinced him, to. And when he was telling this story, you could tell he even said, I for months I felt so resentful that this energy had stopped me from going there. And you could tell he still didn't understand what had actually happened to him.
Right. Because you always hear these stories, and I'm sorry if anybody assumes that NDE is near death experience. For we're using the acronym.
Yeah,
You always hear these stories about NDEs when people come back, they're like enlightened, or walking around and thinking, "Oh my God, that was what an experience! It was now I believe I've changed."
yeah,
And now what you're mentioning is this gentleman was resentful. It was like, "This is not what I wanted."
yeah.
Plus,
And normally with the NDEs, when they come back down, as I say, they just become agents for the Matrix. And it actually is very sad because they've been through that experience, they believe in it so much, right? So
yes,
there is literally no way that one of those people is going to die and figure it, unless they really swallow their ego and
do
look at.
you think that? And I'm going to get around to that. The reason why there is an effort to make people come back is because of the power of the human spirit, or what do you think is the reason?
Oh yeah. So basically, we're on a farm where the cows, we're incredible power generators, incredible energy generators, and these entities they feed on that. It's just like we feed on.
In other words, they're what's the word? They're feeding off our energy, is what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah.
The
It's like caviar for them. Not just our negative energy, but mainly our negative. This is why this realm is constantly at conflict, constantly in war, famines. All the dark stuff that goes on here. It's a realm that is trauma and suffering induced. And again, people get triggered when I say that. But look, I mean, just look around you. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's some good parts to it. Nature's beautiful. Human love. I mean, even that's questionable sometimes. You've got
right.
people projecting their traumas, and it's all a bit of a mess down here, right?
Yes.
I'm not saying you can't have fun, you can't have hobbies, and bring children into the world. I mean, whatever, right? But the overarching theme is trauma and suffering and abuse, right? And we're a slave race. Let's just call things as they are, right? You try and leave your country without a slave book, you won't be able to. You don't pay your taxes, they're going to throw
Oh
you
yeah.
in jail, right? So
Yes.
and what annoys me about the New Age self-help movement is they try and dress this place up as something that it's not. And one thing that they propagate a lot, which really annoys me, is that they tell you that Earth is a school, quote unquote,
Yes.
and that we're here to learn lessons, right?
Yes.
Well, if we're
Yes.
here to learn lessons and Earth is a school, why on earth are we having our memory wiped? So what's the point? If we're learning lessons and
Exactly.
our
Right.
memory wiped, doesn't make any sense. And how many times the other thing is they'll tell you, well, it's God experiencing itself, right, in different emotions or whatever. How many times has God got to experience being a child being blown up by a F-16, or like how many times
Right.
God gets that experience and he's happy with it? Like it's just so what the New Age spiritual movement does, self-help movement, quote unquote, is they try and dress this place, as something that it's not. And even now, they're talking about this is the new Earth, this is 5D, everything's, la la land, kumbaya under the oak tree, everything's great. Archangel Michael's got your back, your guides are here, it's just all love, high vibration. And just
Right.
do me a favor, it's not like that at all, right? It's not like that. And the reason that people gravitate to it all, because you're not going to get out of the soul trap unless you get out of the new age spiritual stuff, right?
Well, I
Because
think that a lot of times what it does is either talks you out of it, out of what's called self-reliance.
Absolutely, it's all about spiritual bypassing, you
Yeah.
know, and just the ideologies taught within the New Age are just terrible. I mean, you know, and ignore the negative. If you ignore the negative, then you won't draw any in. I mean, it's just rubbish. I mean, like, you think like you're going to break your leg and ignoring it is going to get better? I mean, no, you're going to get gangrene. You're going to have it amputated, or you might die. Or like never judge. This idea that it's bad to judge things. Well, the reason that we're in this mess is because we don't judge. We don't
Yeah,
make
no.
judgments.
No.
We've forgotten the ability to discern. And who does that benefit anyway when we don't make judgments? It benefits narcissists,
Right,
controllers,
exactly.
abusive,
It does.
never get angry. We're not allowed
There
to
was
get
no negative repercussions for the person who's doing something bad or wrong, depending on the degree. Don't get me wrong. I mean, there's things that are wrong that, hey, you shouldn't do that, but on a smaller scale. And then there's stuff that's egregious, like, yeah, oh, you better believe I'm going to judge you because
yeah,
you're a
right. I mean,
menace.
and these people, they lie anyway because they're always making judgments. When you meet someone, you're making judgments.
Of
Everyone
course you
does
do.
it. But the
Of
new
course you do.
ages, because the new ages, because they're so elevated, they think the consciousness. They think that they don't judge. They think that they've destroyed their ego. That's another one that's complete deception. You need a healthy ego in this gangster planet, otherwise you're going to get destroyed, right?
Yes.
Without
Yes.
the ego, there's no art. There's no one would create anything. No music. It's
Yes.
just all the ideologies taught within the New Age. All they do is they benefit a narcissistic, parasitic, abusive force.
Well,
They don't want people questioning evil. They don't want people
oh
making
no.
judgments about what this place really is. They don't, you can't think that because you're in the mind, right? The whole demonization of the mind. Never get angry. You're not allowed to get angry about anything. Well, I'm sorry. Like, I am angry about a lot of the things that go on here. And
Yes. Yes.
actually, I'm angry about the fact that I've been partly with myself angry that I've been tricked into coming back round here, God knows how many times. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and that I'm angry that I go out of my front door here in Mexico and, I see families rummaging through bins looking for food and stuff like that. Makes me
Sure.
angry because the new age self-help, they want to blame you. They'll turn around and say, well, that family you saw, Tony, they chose that experience, right? Or
Right.
they
Yeah. Like, come on.
their lesson, or it's their karma, or it's just no. They're experiencing that because the government is corrupt. It wants people poor. It wants more for itself. It wants less for everyone else. And reality is designed that way. It's nothing to do with them choosing that experience or them wanting their lesson for their soul. It's just there's just so much deception in it, and of course, the reason it's so dangerous, Marlene, is because it feels so good. It feels so good to think that you've got guides and angels around you, and
Oh no, no, no. It's no. But I'm not gonna say what the name of this self help person is, but he's pretty. He's got right now like an online course that's titled "The Only Thing You Need to Know to Change Your Life Forever."
right.
That's a big promise there.
That's a bold statement, isn't it? Yeah, and it will be something along the lines of just keep your vibration high. Like, I mean,
But
what is that? I mean, what just that's spiritual bypassing. That's toxic positivity.
let me tell you something. And that gentleman, I'm not gonna say again his name. He's done presentations. I'm gonna all around the world. And I remember one time he was doing one. I think it was in Dubai. We were talking $10,000 to
Mhm.
attend it. Okay, for us peasants,
Right.
this is
Yeah. Yeah.
not for you.
Yeah.
Because who's going to afford a $10,000 ticket
Yeah.
to be given all this information, all this? I
Yeah.
was like, all right,
Yeah.
I guess, in other words,
Yeah.
and he's been doing this for many, many years.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, if when you look at that title, it's the end all be all answer to all your
Yeah,
problems.
right. I mean, but the thing is, it just, I mean, I've had people come to me and they're like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I've got my own course and I have sessions and stuff. I mean, it's not 10 grand, God, like, it's affordable for people, but I've had people that they've shared with me like, Tony, I spent like, yeah, 10 grand on this like angel healing course, or like it's just, and I feel like shit.
Well,
So
the feeling I get, Tony, is big price tag. This is definitely going to work. Otherwise, how could he be
yeah,
charging?
yeah, yeah, exactly,
You know,
yeah.
don't
So
get, believe me, I have nothing against making money. I'm all
yeah,
for it. You
yeah,
know, and I'm sure that there's people that paid it thinking,
yeah.
you know,
Oh,
whatever the outcome was, I don't know. My
yeah,
point is that the in this case, like the title of that is that people again they want to relinquish control or self-reliance or self-responsibility by
yeah,
saying I'm gonna go and this person's gonna tell me everything I need to do in life from now on to
yeah.
make it work.
Absolutely.
And
I
they
mean,
bypass the whole thing is that life is messy and it's supposed to be messy.
yeah.
It
Well,
is.
you know what? I don't think it is supposed to be messy. I think it's designed to be messy.
Well,
By
I
the
think
by the
it's we're not perfect, and it's and there's
No, we're not
always
perfect.
that ingredient of yeah, you expect people to do certain things and then they don't,
Oh
you
yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
We're flawed, aren't we? I think that's the thing. But I think the way it's set up, it's kind of, we're all on a treadmill, aren't we? I mean, it's like
oh yeah.
you don't see like the birds and the mammals and like grinding away every day, like trying to get
Oh
these like
no, no,
snipper
they just
bits of
exist.
money.
They
Yeah,
exist.
it
They
exists.
exist.
They've created this scarcity, this scarcity reality where it's just made very challenging when it doesn't have to be like that. I think without this parasitical force and this overlay that we have here,
Let me
I
ask you,
think
what do you think the source of these parasites are? We talking something in the middle plane? What do you think is the source of these beings that want us on this treadmill?
I think they're like AI programs. I think they're
Okay.
um, the way I see them is that there are people talk of like entities and in terms of like the reptilians and yeah, they're definitely an entity race, but there's a whole plethora of different entities and different types of entities within those entity families. So, for example,
Okay.
you have demonic entities, you have serpent entities, you have four-headed snakes entities, you have dragon entities, you have demiurge, you have octopus entities, you have spider entities, you have it's teeming with say life, but so all these entities kind of like have their own agenda, and it's all to do with siphoning off our energy. And the problem for them is that there's a lot of us now, and that's what they're trying to do with the depopulation, because there's so much information out there now, and people are spreading it like wildfire, which is a great thing. And so
Yes.
there's kind of like a race to the finishing line as to whether or not they're gonna get us all under this like AI technological smart cities, everyone
Right. Right.
jabbed
Right.
up program, or we wake up and we say no more. And you see with all the censorship and the banning and everything, I think the dam is kind of already broken. And I think that at this point, I think they're trying to put their fingers in the holes.
Well, I
Um,
think what happened is a lot of people, and I agree with you, but people don't realize as far as widespread literacy among the population, that's really been a phenomenon of maybe the last 150 years. We're talking here human history, where everybody learned how to read little by little, more of the general population. And then let's say after the 90s with the introduction of social media, all of a sudden it wasn't just if you had the book. Now beyond the literacy is the being able to access information
mhm.
from different sources. So first
Yes,
you had the literacy, overall literacy of the population, and then you have the access to different, and the reason why I'm saying this, and believe me, even now, I'm sure you've seen that there's disputes about some of the books that some libraries are either keeping or not allowing. And it's like, I
yeah,
never thought of that. A library, but now with, let's say, the internet,
Mm,
you could access supposedly, and that's kind of books of different sources, whatever they are, maybe even controversial. And God knows we're going through also a process
mm,
of where things are being basically, manipulated, where we want you to see this, but we don't
yeah.
want you to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the problem is now, yes, we have more information, but they've flooded it with misinformation and
Oh yes,
disinformation.
of course. It's up to the person to be discerning, and yeah, and then I know that the
Yeah,
money, the big bucks are behind the one version of the truth, as
yeah. Well,
of the
when you look
supposed
at the
truth.
New Age spiritual movement, it was started by Helena Blavatsky, who was a dark
Yes,
Luciferian, because they needed a new religion, because religion was the old religions were dying, so they needed something new. So the New Age was created. And so the point I'm making is that for me, that you can take that entire New Age spirituality movement and just put it in the bin and burn it. The only bit you want to take, and the truth that they pepper it with all the bullshit with, is that we're energy and we don't die. That's the core truth that they put at the core of it, and then they pepper it with all this bullshit, right? Angels and guides, and all this stuff that you're going to give your power away to, and end up, all that stuff. So, for example, like you go on Amazon and you type in spiritual, you're going to get all the New Age books. You're going to get
yes,
Eckhart Tolle.
yes,
You're going to get all of them, right? So you
yes.
can spend hours and hours and days and months consuming all this information, but is it the right information? And this is, I think within alternative media and the truth movement, if you want to call it
Mm-hmm.
that, is that
Yes,
we have this thing about consuming all this information. And don't get me wrong, it's important to search, but is the information that you're digesting, even though it's like alternative, is it actually the truth, right? Is it the truth?
exactly.
and and that's where, like you say, the discernment comes in, and the feeling into the information, like feeling into, because truth is a frequency. You feel it in like the
Yes,
the pit of your stomach, like even if it doesn't feel good, you can still feel it, right? And that's the difference with the New Age stuff. Like it feels good, it makes you feel happy, but does it
sure.
feel true? Is there like that core resonance? And that's what you're looking for when you're trying to discern for the truth. So yeah, it's been a gift and a curse these last few years with the internet. I mean, we're able to hold podcasts like this and spread information, but
Well, we were talking about like back when what was in the '90s when Oprah had her show,
yeah,
that she would bring on all these authors, and that's it. If you were an Oprah, you were golden. You
yeah,
were you were you're good, man. Whatever. And then you
yeah,
had that John of God. Turns
yeah,
out supposed healer. He was a trafficker. He was a rapist.
yeah, yeah,
Okay, you name it. And there's other people that is like, now you look back and there's some of them, I'm sure that if you follow up, they weren't exactly what they pretended to be, but the push, what you were saying as far as this is what you need to, is like once you got on that program, that was it. You were like, you got your little crown of, you're gonna make a lot of money and everybody's gonna believe absolutely everything you say.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, the simple thing to discern truth, anything that's on Oprah Winfrey, then just disregard
Yes,
what you
people
said.
don't, people, for people that haven't been around that long,
Yeah,
her show was very popular, and basically any speaker, author, product that came on Oprah, that was it. That was like you were golden. Whatever it was golden. Well, Oprah approved.
yeah, yeah, right.
And if you were an unknown author, you would zoom to the number one on the list. There was only one exception. I don't know. I don't know if you remember this. This was a gentleman who wrote a book that called Million Little Pieces. And in the book, he describes, I believe, this is me going from memory, where he went from a drug addicted life of nothing and he built himself up, and the book is about how he built it. Turns out later on, very shortly after, that he had made everything up.
Oh,
This
right.
whole this
Yeah,
whole history of all his hardships
right, right. Yeah, yeah,
and all these things. And I'm gonna get back to something you said. For some reason, don't get me wrong, I know bad things happen to different people, some worse than others. But there's always been this glorification of either victimhood or the person that's gone through all these horrible things, a lot of times because they put themselves in that position.
mm,
But you never see that much celebration of the person that's been steadily good. When I mean
Yeah,
average, you know?
yeah,
Hey, normal life, no deviancy, no drug use. The
yeah, yeah,
average Joe, if you want to call it, nah, that's boring.
yeah,
Go
yeah,
sit back down. We need something like spicy, somebody that, and it's like, you know what? There is, that reward that nobody wants to think of the reward for that kind of lifestyle
yeah, yeah.
versus, and then I think that then that's when you get into part of it was what you described where people start depending on things outside of themselves,
Yeah. I mean,
especially in the most dangerous area, which is the spiritual, mental, psychological portion of your life.
yeah. Well, we were speaking about it off air. Who was the name of the lady that I reviewed yesterday? I can't even remember her name.
I'm sorry, what?
I said, who was the name of the woman that I reviewed yesterday? I
Oh,
can't.
Sonia Choquette?
Yeah, Sonia Chapette. So we were talking off air about how she's telling everyone to connect with their guides. Are you still there?
Yes.
Oh yeah, yeah. So yeah, so she's telling everyone to connect with guides and calling them runners, down to the point where she's basically giving every decision of her life over to her guides,
Yes.
even down to finding her a car parking space. And
And right.
you
And
know,
you know what? It's really funny. I urge everybody, I want to interrupt you real quick. Please go visit Tony's channel, Tony Sayers, and look at his last release video to see what we're talking about. It's excellent. But even now, because I had not heard her for many years, I sat there because you were showing, I'm sorry, I have a bypass for my kids. Um, that she speaks to children like, I mean, she speaks to us like we're children, like simpletons.
oh
And I
yeah,
was looking at that, I was like, how can people like listen to this drivel? But anyway,
no.
go ahead.
But you know what people often come to me and they go, because a lot of people obviously they come to me from the new age where they were in the new age, and they're like,
Mm-hmm.
they go through a grieving process when you hear this information, because I'm the first person to admit that what I'm saying right now doesn't make you feel good, right? Not in the
Right.
moment anyway. I mean, I do feel that this information is stands a good chance of helping you get out of this place. So
Mm-hmm.
there's definitely a silver lining at the end of it. But in the moment, when you've come from thinking you've got guides and angels and they've all got your back and it's high vibrations and gong baths and all this stuff, like
Right.
for someone like me, it's not very good, nice for me. I remember I worked with a yoga instructor, and he's like, Tony. He's like, when I heard you first, he's like, I hated you like for months, but he
Mm-hmm.
said, but what you said, it wouldn't leave me. So he said, in the end, I had another look, and then it all makes sense now. And he said, now I love your work and what you do. So
Right. Because there's a part of your subconscious. Since I'm a hypnotist, I understand about the subconscious. There's a part
yes,
of your subconscious mind, like what he said, that at the beginning, his initial reaction to you was, I hate this. You're
yeah,
breaking down all these ideas that I got. But in the
yeah,
back of my mind, my subconscious mind is telling me, listen to what he's saying because he's
yeah.
right.
And also entity attachments can also
Oh,
influence
let's
a
talk about
person.
entity attachments, Tony.
Yeah, so I mean, entities will do anything to take you off your path, waste your
Mm-hmm.
time, and they can be like most of our thoughts that we have. They're not even ours, right? They're coming from these attachments. So these entities,
Yes.
they're not just affecting and working through our world leaders and government officials. That they're affecting everyone. Everyone has attachments to some degree or another. Some people more
Mm-hmm.
than that, than others, depending on how they live their life, and how much trauma that they've had. Can all depend, and there's
Yes.
different levels of attachments as well. You have your normal bottom feeder that will just be telling you you're no good enough or you're not good enough all day. But then you might have a more severe attachment that might be giving you suicidal thoughts. I had someone
Yes.
tell me this voice came in my head telling me to drive my car into a brick wall. It wasn't my voice. Right? So
Right.
that's a sign of a more problematic attachment.
Yes. Yes.
And then you have full-on possessions, which we've seen people that have been
Mm-hmm.
fully possessed, and they almost get like superhuman strength and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
They're very rare, but the general population is very much influenced by this mind virus or these parasites, mind parasites, and half the time they'll go under the radar because you're so used to these negative voices, you don't even think about it. So they'll be like, someone might be listening to this podcast, and there'll be like a voice saying, no, no, it's not true, don't listen to him, or and then you'll be like, actually, that's not even my voice.
Hmm.
Or for example, you might think something that might better you. So maybe you've got an idea about starting a business that's going to help people, and you'll be sitting there thinking about it, and then all of a sudden you'll get these voices saying, no, you're not gonna do that, it's gonna be too hard, don't do it.
Yes.
Or even down to the smallest little things, like you might be sitting there and you think, do you know what I probably really need to get out in nature. I probably need to go for a walk in the forest, just ground myself a little bit. And then there'll be a voice come in like, it's too cold, like maybe go tomorrow or the next day, or, you're
Yes.
tired. And because, when you get out in nature, there's a harmonious resonance with the frequency of nature that is very healing for us. Um, and so, yeah, they're always any subconscious wounds that you've got, like, if you've got an abandonment wound, they'll be like, your partner's going to leave you, your partner's going to leave you. So what they do is they hook into your wounds and they turn the volume up on them. And so it becomes, a 24-hour, 7-day a week thing.
Tony,
And so,
what do you do when somebody comes to you and 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 you realize that what they've got an attachment is what? Let me ask you, do they have a hard time believing that they do have an attachment at all,
no,
or are they
no,
ready to accept that?
most people that come to me have listened to my work and understand that, like I say, everyone has attachments, everyone has interference, everyone has etheric implants. But we're also very strong as well, and some of this goes under the radar. But yeah, I mean, when you clear this stuff, you're often left with a much more quieter mind. And
Yes.
people have said to me, I remember, when I had a much lesser version of the work I do in terms of like removing some of the implants and overlays.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the morning after, I just, my mind was quiet, and I'm like, my God, like all those voices that for years I had saying, you're not good enough, you can't do this, they'd just gone quiet. I was just left with silence. It was
Yes.
incredible. And so, they really do. Because their role is to get us feeling bad about ourselves, feeling disempowered,
Yes.
and so then we go along with the matrix agendas, and when we're feeling bad about ourselves, that's more food for them, if you like. And so, like I say, everyone has a certain level of interference. It's just, some people will have more than others. Some people are very, I don't even like using the words targeted individual, because people, like you were talking about the victim thing, like people really, I remember when I first started talking about it, I don't use those words anymore. It's because people just like hook into that, and they're like, I'm a targeted individual, because it makes them feel special. It's like,
Yes.
I used to get emails like, I'm a targeted individual. And
Yes.
I'm like, well, no, you're just really, you're just subject to the same interference as most of us are. And don't get
Right.
me wrong, there's some people that they are the matrix has a little bit more of an interest in them. Let's say, maybe they're gonna,
Yes.
I mean, I get hit quite a lot, but the nature of what I'm doing and what I'm saying is to be expected, right? So
Yes.
other people, what you find is a lot of these SRA victims, satanic ritual abuse victims,
Yes.
they're
Mm-hmm.
very, I mean, I worked with a lady in Canada, and she died last week. God bless her. She was incredible. I mean, we worked together for 2 or 3 years, and she was just a force of nature, right? She was so intuitive. She would know things about me before, like, I knew about them myself.
Yes.
She would see things in me that I couldn't see myself. She was so intuitive, and I I could see why she would have been
Let me ask
targeted.
you something. Did she? This was she was an SRA victim from childhood.
Yes, yeah.
Did she remember what happened to her, or was she? Did she get
We,
recovered
we
memories?
we did some regression, and there was
Okay.
some very very dark stuff that happened.
Yes.
Yeah, very,
Okay.
very dark, like unthinkable stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um, as you can imagine. And she was so brave. In fact, it's really nice for me to talk about her because um, I feel like her story needs to be told in a way. And
Sure. Yes.
when you're speaking about like this kind of victimhood consciousness, I
No, no,
always
no, no.
no, no,
I'm going to
no,
interrupt
no,
you real
no.
quick. There's people that truly, when they say victims, they really are
Yeah, yeah, no.
victims. What you're describing right there.
I know. I wasn't taking a negative slant on what you were saying. I'm saying that um, when with that, because a lot of people do have that as well. They stuff has happened to them, and yeah, it's not their fault, but it's their
Right.
responsibility to heal it. This woman faced the most darkest crap that you could ever imagine, face on,
Right.
head on, and she inspired me to be better. And I always use her as an example of what can be achieved.
Yes.
No matter what you've been through, you can still face it and still come through
Yes.
the other side.
Exactly.
Yeah, she literally passed away last week. I got an email from her sister, and I was devastated. And yeah, I forgot what my point was with telling
Well,
you
no,
that.
what you were saying as far as, and let me insert this real quick. There are people that are victimized. Absolutely. And I think that when people that are, I don't even want to use the word victimized, take it, I'm a victim, they cheapen or they belittle the experiences of people that have truly been victimized.
Yeah,
When everybody's running around being a victim, it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. There's a
yeah,
portion of you, I'm sorry, you're not a victim, or you're trying to
yeah,
feel important and and
yeah.
basically, you're making less of the real, true people that either through circumstances, if you're
Uh-huh.
a child, like, what are you going to do? We're not, you can't
Yeah,
go anywhere. Like, sometimes that happened with these SRA victims, other things that is like, because you're making it so commonplace that everybody's a victim. Come on.
yeah,
Ah.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that's because of that glorification of that victimology.
Mm.
That's whether it's a health thing, you name it, whatever.
Yeah,
But let me
yeah.
ask you, did she, from what you're saying about this lady, she overcame all these experiences from childhood as
Well,
far as later?
there was still there was still work that she needed to do.
Okay.
There was still layers that she was going to address with me in the future.
Mm-hmm.
She was having a little break because the back end of last year we've done a lot of dark, deep stuff,
Okay.
which she needed to do. And I when I first found out last week, I was incredibly upset for a day or two, and then I really kind of remembered who she was, and it's almost like you know, it was almost like I could hear her saying, "Do you know what, Tony? I'm glad that I'm the fuck out of here." She
Right.
had such a tough life, and she understood the soul trap. She used to watch my videos, so I don't think that she would have been manipulated back
Okay.
around. So I firmly believe that she got out of here, and the work that she did by the healing that she did, because when you heal in an organic way, not like love and light, sit under a tree and to have a gong
Mm-hmm.
bar. But she was doing proper reparenting the child, going into the experience and taking the child out of it.
She did
Um,
that? Okay.
yeah. And she was doing clearing areas of land where rituals were going on astrally.
Okay.
Yeah, so she
Where
was,
she was at. Excellent.
yeah, she was in Kamloops up in Canada where the Queen went,
Mm-hmm.
and all the kids
Mm-hmm.
went missing out there, right? So
Yes.
she was born into a very very high profile satanic uh, family,
Okay.
and there was one session where she was doing some clearing on an area of Canada, and I could feel where I was here in Mexico, just a very subtle shift in what she was doing. So there's so much you can do on that plane, and
Okay.
when someone powerful like that does the inner work, and she was doing generational healing as well, that would have
Okay.
ripples into time and space, and what she done here, although she may not have completed everything, she made a big impact by transmuting all that trauma that she took. She screwed it up into a ball and threw it into a fire, basically.
Yes.
Um, and yeah, I'll never forget the bravery and courage, and yeah, just an incredible lady. And luckily, I think she had a very quick death. I think it was like a brain aneurysm, and
Okay.
they just found the the doctor said that it wouldn't have been a long drawn out thing. And yeah, now I feel like I'm happy for her, because I mean, imagine the things that she went through, um,
Yes.
and then spending a lifetime trying to heal that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it wasn't fun for her. Like, as brave as she was, it wasn't a fun life for her.
Sure.
And I think that she was bright enough to not get tied into having another lifetime around here.
But what you described there about doing that that child rescue of yourself as a child, that's a very it's a very powerful way of healing when
Hmm.
you've had trauma as a child. What
Yeah.
you just described there, but you know, still whatever. It's I want to say it's a trauma, but the scars are always will always be there because let's face it, as a child, and in what you're describing, it's betrayal at the very
Oh
deepest
yeah.
level, which is by your caretakers. And
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
so I know that you told me that you needed to be do something afterwards. So I wanted to thank you so much, Tony. It has been wonderful to speak to you. Are you working on any book or anything like that right now?
Um, I will be in the future. I'm going to be writing a book about it, basically everything that we spoke about today in terms of the soul trap and the NDE studies, and the entities and how they work, how they masquerade. So there's going to be a big book down the line. Right now, I just bought a course out where it teaches people how to clear entities and implants and things like that. It's all
Okay.
on my website, transcendingtimes.org. Also facilitate sessions in clearing and stuff like that. So yeah, don't worry, it's not $10,000. So
Let me tell you something. When I looked at that, this was like, okay, this is, and I guess my point was that you might have a powerful message, but you're placing it really out of reach of the majority of the population on this
right,
planet.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it's one
And
of those things. But for my podcast listeners, what's your website where they could find you at?
it's transcendingtimes.org. And of
Okay.
course, I have my YouTube channel,
Yes.
which is just my name, where
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I basically rip apart New Agers and all the
Oh
pull
yeah, of
down
course.
pull down the spiritual
It's like, oops.
fake
You know what?
spirituality.
And I have read, I've listened to a lot of different new age. In other words, whatever my opinion is, and of course it's an opinion, it's like this is not based on hearsay. This is stuff that I've heard firsthand.
Yeah,
You know what they all and like I said, some of it at the beginning, that outer layer sounds all very nice, but then as you get into it, and yeah, there's more to it. There's the dark side of self help, if you want to call it that.
absolutely, absolutely.
It has been great to speak to you, Tony. And as a matter of fact, I subscribed to your channel because I was so enjoying that last interview. I have to go back
Yeah.
to your other things because it was excellent, excellent.
Well,
Again, thank you so.
I have a whole playlist of New Age reviews, so
I got to go
uh,
through that.
I'm sure you'll have fun with those. So, but yeah, thank you for what you're doing, and
No, on the
for what you've
contrary.
done for all these years.
Yeah,
And people don't always think about these podcasts that are put up. People, a lot of the time they just watch them. They don't see all the prep and the editing sometimes,
yeah,
and just the time it takes. So, thank you
yes.
for
No, on the
facilitating.
contrary. Thank you. It has been wonderful. And I want to wish you the best of luck in all your projects.
Thank you so much, Marlene. You take care.
Likewise. Bye bye. Isn't that interesting? Oh, by the way, I'm going to bring this up. You know who called me? That my same child, that for some reason, see, we have this connection where he calls me whenever I'm doing a show. And like I've said before, I have my phone on silent, but for my family, I have what they call an emergency bypass, which means that if their number comes in, it's going to bypass the silent. It will ring because I'm always thinking if they need to get in touch with me. And sometimes it's important, but most of the times it's not. But my youngest child has a talent for calling me at the most inopportune time, kind of thing. So I'll call him in a bit and find out what it is. But Yeah, I think it's super interesting what he was talking about because, like I said, I remember when Dr. Moody came out, he was the first one that published a book, as far as from the medical establishment, all right, detailing the near death experience. And it's become part of our lexicon, the NDEs, people that no, they're not on the brink of death, they actually die, and then they have all these experiences, whether they see, family, others will even see their, if they say they're in a surgery, they'll see their selves being worked on, or even in trauma centers. And they can even say, I heard conversations on what people were wearing when they were in the waiting room. In other words, that, and then of course that tunnel of light and meeting the loved ones, and uh et cetera, et cetera. You do have other people that have described a near death experience that's kind of on the dark side, or quite dark, very frightful. And you never understand exactly why one or the other. But what Tony's explaining, which is, because you say, well, what is, why would any entities want to keep us on a treadmill of coming back to Earth and living these lives? Before, well, if you're the food source, and I'm going to say this from not little eating, but as far as, if let's say we go with that matrix analogy, where you're the battery, you're an energy source for some way, shape, or other. I don't know exactly how that would work. Then that kind of makes sense in a way. All right, why they would want you to come back. And you know what, and that is, he brought something up which I myself have thought. You know how they say, well, in the when you go through reincarnation, they wipe your memory of whatever the past life that you had was. In other words, or why you supposedly have to come back. All right. Let's say let's say they give an example of, you were a greedy person who was only into money, and you ran people over, and whatever. This was your God, and that was it. Okay. And then maybe supposedly you would come back as a poor person so that you could understand that the money's not everything. One of those deals, one of those where we're going to make you learn your lesson one way or the other. And I always thought, well, what's the use of, if you use that school example, why would they take away what you messed up on? You know, why would they do that? That kind of is like, it's kind of self-defeating, because if man, this is what I got wrong. I know where it could complicate your life or your mind if you would remember every little thing, but at the same time, it's almost like, and I'm going to give you an example. Um, and the government does this every once in a while, where you'll ask for something or apply for something, and then I'm going to give you a perfect example. This was a while back. I had a piece of land, and I was trying to get agricultural classification on it. All right. And initially I said, well, what you need to do is this and this. And then we'll have an inspector go out from the county, because this was at the county level, and they'll approve or disapprove you, whatever. I said, okay, I did everything that was on this list, blah, blah, blah. The inspector comes out, and I get a letter. It's been denied, but no reason. No reason. I couldn't. And the reason why I was interested in doing this was for tax purposes. Hint, hint. In other words, they were getting more money out of me, but if I was able to change the classification on the land to agricultural use, I would pay less money because of whatever. So I'm like, okay, but okay, I didn't get this because of, what was it that's missing, or what was wrong? I went round and round into this. Okay, I couldn't figure it out. Finally, I got a hold of some lady. She's very good at what she did, and this was her field of what she did. She would work with people who were trying to get, let's say, agricultural zoning or classification for their piece of land, things like that, or whatever. And I remember her first name is Helen. And I spoke to her and I explained to her and I said, Helen, they don't say exactly why I didn't get it. And she said, oh no, they do that on purpose. They don't want you to fix it. So basically I had to end up hiring somebody. And then it got resolved immediately because once they know that somebody that's in on it, okay, is going to take care of it. But going back to the original point, it's almost like the same thing of coming back supposedly to rectify what you did wrong, but then you don't know what you did wrong or you can't remember it. So it's kind of the same thing. It's like, okay, something's wrong here, but what was it? I can't remember. I don't know. Oh, I was a greedy SOB, or I was a shallow person, or whatever, whoever, whatever supposedly your sin, whatever, let's call it that. And of course, everybody needs to talk to me. It would help if I knew what it was. All right. Again, we get into that, and that's always that question as far as if we, the thought of a reincarnation, the theory of reincarnation, if that's really it. Part of me thinks, okay, I could see where if you had to remember a bunch of lives, you'd probably walk around maybe a little bit cuckoo. But then at the same time, it's like not knowing what you did wrong. What what purpose does that serve? It's like, give me a chance to rectify, but if I don't know what it is, oh, you mean I'm bound to make the same mistake over again? Yeah, that very schizophrenic type of like, yeah, we're gonna punish you, but you're not gonna remember what for. And when I say punish, I'm saying if supposedly you're coming back under circumstances which sometimes might be negative so that you will learn your lesson, it's kind of like very difficult. So Tony's idea of that we're basically asked to come back and reincarnate, more as a source of energy for whatever these entities are versus going straight back to the original, if you want to call it the creator, source, God, which by the way jives into, I'm going to go with the, most the religious thoughts. I'm not going to say all, but the religious, but I want to use Christianity, that once you die, there is no such thing as reincarnation. I'm not such a proponent of the hell thing, but in other words, that there was no, you're coming back for a second try on this. And don't get me wrong, I think there's something attractive when you think about, wow, I'm going to get another chance to make it right, especially if you weren't the best person, kind of. But anyway, getting back to the Christian thing, or the it was like, this is it. You live a good life or a bad life or whatever. And when you die, you go supposedly to the pearly gates or whatever the case. That's it. End of story. You're going to go back to the source, the creator, the whatever. And good, bad, or in between. There is no second go around. Or in other words, that was supposedly, that was the soul. The soul is supposed to return to the creator. And yeah, yes, there's a there's a judgment thing supposedly. And like he said that, I want to say, what you want to think of it as hell, or in Catholicism, there's purgatory, basically where you stew there for a while. I don't know, but was always this finality as far as who you were, as far as your soul was concerned, which meant you're not supposed to come back to earth as another human being. That was it. So whatever you made of it, which was why you'd have, you hear about these people that were well off, where it's, Catholicism, where if maybe they led not such quite a like good life, but then towards the end when they're getting old or close to death, then they would try to buy all these favors and have them pray for him, and give money to the church so you could build your whatever, because they were trying to offset. Because in other words, if I don't make it right now, I'm not going to be able to come back and make it right later. That was it. You knew that once this life was over, your soul was going to return to God. There was no go around to in other words, that wheel of reincarnation. And in some cases where You even hear of and I'm not an expert on reincarnation by any, even though I've hypnotized people for it. But I know that there's even belief systems that we don't necessarily have to even reincarnate as humans, which is, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that, but that doesn't sound right. All right. And by the way, whether it's animals or I don't know, that right there I have to like, but I don't see, how's this? I don't see, if we go along with the theory of reincarnation, that if you're a human soul, which might have made mistakes, some bad, some horrible, whatever. Okay. And you're coming back, let's go with you were a shallow narcissistic person. Whatever. And in your shallowness, you hurt people along the way and you only thought of yourself and etc. Fill in the blank. You were like the Scarlet O'Hara of Gone in the Wind. What use would it be supposedly if you're going to reincarnate as a cat, a cow, a roach, a plant? The purpose of that would be to what? That would help your soul. How? See, that's the part I don't exactly get. As far as if the idea is to push your soul forward in its evolution, in other words, make it a better soul, to where a perfect soul, because basically if you think about it, it's like, okay, if we're waiting for the moment where I don't have to reincarnate because I've worked it out, that's perfection. And I don't know about that perfection thing. And even what he was mentioning about Helen Blavatsky, she came out of the mystery schools, and even then, even now, they're not really sure what her source of her teachings, where were they sourced from. All right, because believe it or not, in the 1800s, which is when a lot of these mystery schools came about, some of them you could tell where they came from, where their teachings were drawn from. But then others, I guess that's why they call them mystery schools. Um, a lot of their esoteric belief systems, some of them you could say they were based on Egyptian magic or this or that or Rosicrucian, blah, blah, blah. But there's others that were like, yeah, I see what you're delivering, but how did you come upon, where did you reach this conclusion? Where? How? But that's a whole nother show. So anyway, guys, I hope you like this interview with Tony Sayers. There will be a link in the credits of the show to his website. And I know there's a lot of people out there that will say self-help is great. I've listened to a lot of self-help audios, books. I will be honest, a lot of times I listen to them with an open mind. In other words, I wasn't going hook, line, and sinker with some of these things because I saw, how can I say it, and I agree with him. At first blush, it's telling you, if you listen to what I'm telling you, your woes will disappear. And don't get me wrong, I think that yeah, if listening to something helps, how's this? And I have found that this is effective. Let's say when somebody has done something or gone on and they go to a group therapist, not one-on-one, group therapist, or which, by the way, is why 12 steps sometimes is so popular. And you hear other people that are going or have gone through something similar as you. Okay. It helps because when bad things happen, sometimes people tend to feel sometimes isolated, or the universe is picking on you, or God is whatever. When I call it the left hand, God knows. All right. So when you hear other people that have gone through something similar to you or even worse, and they've come and everybody talks and shares their experiences, that sense of isolation breaks down and it makes you feel better. Okay. But ultimately, okay, all these experiences from all these other people will never solve any of your problems unless you do something for yourself. All right. It helps to not feel isolated, but unless you do something, whatever the problem is to begin with, unless you take actions and self-responsibility for yourself, for your mind, for your actions, for your outlook, even if it's something you have to like remind yourself every day. It doesn't matter how many people have had the similar experience. All right, because you know it's us. But unfortunately, and I think where a lot of the self-help field goes for people that want to abdicate responsibility. How you abdicate responsibility for yourself and for your life and for your actions? You turn it over to gurus, cults, um, in some cases, a lighter version, which is, you listen to some of these health things, and it's not that you listen to it, it's that you believe it, hook, line, and sinker. And um, things of this nature, and all of a sudden, there's no independent thought or questioning or things of this nature, which should always be a process of our existence. You know that saying that they say question authority. You know, I'm not talking about just question authority all the time, as in whatever it is that you're hearing or listening to. Yeah, you agree with it, but you always examine it. And there's some stuff that is like, I kind of agree with you, but there's stuff I don't, or I don't absolutely. But some people, it's like, no, I don't want to think for myself. I don't want to like have independent thought. I don't want to have to examine that or dissect that and see it for what it is, which in many cases, what Tony Sayers was saying is the ultimate bottom line objective is control. Control of people, control of their minds. You control somebody's mind, you control their feelings, you control their bodies, you control them. And there you go. And that's why he was talking about, how we're on this treadmill of like a prison planet slavery kind of thing, because we being independent and self-reliant is harder. It is. I think it's more fulfilling, but it's a harder thing to do because guess what? When you make a mistake, you have no one to blame but yourself. Yeah, there's people that make, there's things that happen to you. I'm not going to say, but a lot of stuff that happens is like, you have to like look in the mirror and go, well, that was all you. Maybe you went to the wrong place. Maybe you trusted the wrong person. Maybe you did the wrong thing. Especially as you get older and hopefully, you've picked up experience along the way. Um, and some people say, no, I don't want to do that. No, that's difficult. That'll mean I'll be like, oh, I'll be on the hook. Yeah, you'll be on the hook, but hopefully you'll become a more, what's the word I'm looking for? A more interesting person. Anyway, guys, come back every week. I have a lot of good guests lined up. All right, please go to mpellicer.com or miamighostchronicles.com. You can find links to all the videos, the whether it's the podcast or the video versions of all the shows, also supernaturalstorytime.com, nightshadediary.com, eerie.news. All right, everything you can find it, and of course a link to my newsletter on Substack. All right, I have a lot of interesting stuff on there. So till next week, please take care. You are all wonderful. Till next time.